그 성경 말씀 아닙니까?
Do you know how extravagant the lives of South Korea's upper class are? More than $3,000 for a 100 milliliters whitening essence. They have a bucket of it every morning. When they want to watch a certain actor's show, they directly invite them to their home. A casual dinner at night is equivalent to an ordinary person's annual salary. It is simply impossible to describe with the word extravagant. It is said that when this film was released, it faced boycott from many upper-class figures, because it truthfully exposes the various bottom-line-less tactics used by celebrities and executives who try to squeeze into high society. To be honest, if South Korea had not abolished the censorship system, if the director had not dared to film it, and the actors had not dared to perform it, we ordinary people at the bottom would never have access to these things. Today, let's take a look at exactly what dirty methods they used to squeeze through that seemingly glamorous door of high society.
Art is shit.
At the scene of a South Korean public protest rally, an elderly man, unable to pay the rent deliberately inflated by the government, so he took a lighter and directly set his gasoline-soaked body on fire in front of the government. In an instant, the flames, like a giant python, wrapped around the old man's entire body. When everyone was frightened weak in the knees by this scene, only the male lead Dae-jang stepped forward. He used his suit to beat out the flames on the old man's body. After seeing no effect, Dae-jang, disregarding his own life, directly tackled the old man to the ground, forcibly pressing down on the flames with his own body, and ultimately succeeded in saving the old man. The reporters around the scene all captured this heroic moment. After news reports, Dae-jang became famous throughout South Korea, but no one would have thought that Dae-jang had an ulterior motive. He is an economics professor at Seoul National University, and also has a highly capable wife, Wira. She is the deputy director of the Seoul Museum of Art. In the eyes of outsiders, they are definitely considered successful in their careers, winners in life, but the two of them are just not satisfied with their current lives. I don't know whether to call it ambition, or an anxious desire to pursue high society. Dae-jang is never satisfied with just being a professor. He is determined to enter politics and change the rules, having repeatedly proposed the idea of a low-interest citizens' bank on TV, specifically to provide loans to ordinary people, to combat the monopoly of the market by conglomerates. This idea gained widespread support from the lower class, and combined with rescuing the old man, earning him the title of national hero, the conservative Minute-guk Party, in order to capitalize on this wave of attention, actively extended an invitation to Dae-jang.
이번 총선에 우리 민국당 후보로 지역구 출마도 좀 해주시고.
Dae-jang was thrilled when he heard it, because he wanted to enter politics more than anyone. He believed this was his only chance to squeeze into high society and realize his ideals. At the same time, Wira, who is determined to get the permanent position, is busy at the museum, because in a few days, a large art exhibition will be held here. At that time, hundreds of artists will gather here. But just as it was about to take shape, she was notified by the chief director that the person in charge had been changed at the last minute. This clearly showed that Wira, as the deputy director, was not taken seriously. Unable to contain her anger, she immediately went to the director's office to argue. Who knew the director would act all high and mighty, completely disregarding Wira, even though Wira was only one rank below her.
내가 이사장으로 올라가면 자동으로 관장 되는 줄 아는 모양인데 관장은 아무나 하는 줄 알아?
Wira left the office with a belly full of anger. She knew very well in her heart that if she kept going on like this, it would be impossible for her to smoothly become the director. So she decided to use some dirty tactics. She found the chairman of the Future Group, who is the actual controller of the museum, and also a conglomerate tycoon in society. Wira told him her needs.
그 할망구 관장 자리 폼으로 앉아 있는 거 아니야?
그 관장 자리 저 주세요.
관장 자리를 달라. 그래서 내가 얻는 건
파트너요. 믿고 맡길 만한.
The tycoon had plenty of good resources at his disposal. How could he possibly lack partners? Unless Wira could become one of his pawns. As the scene shifted, Wira appeared at an auction in Paris. An ordinary, utterly unremarkable painting. She kept raising the bid on it, and finally, a work worth only 1 million euros was taken by her for 10 million euros. Of course, it was not her own money she spent, but the tycoon's. At night, Wira was drinking and partying at a bar, celebrating that she would become the director upon returning home. Unexpectedly, here, she ran into her ex-boyfriend whom she had not seen for many years. Her ex-boyfriend was now a well-known artist, although the two did not say a word when they met. From their eyes, both could feel the joy of meeting again. They stood on the hotel rooftop, talking about their recent lives. As they talked, her ex-boyfriend could not resist his desire, and directly kissed Wira. The two went from the rooftop to the hotel room, and finally, fueled by alcohol, WRR forgot the purpose of her visit, forgot her husband far away in South Korea. But little did she know that behind all this pleasure, a pair of eyes was watching them, and Dae-jang, who was in South Korea after entering politics, began to loosen his principles. From initially considering the people to now engaging in political showmanship, he brought a large group of reporters and bank executives to the hospital to visit the burn victim.
어르신, 몸 좀 어떠세요?
The old man's voice was very soft, mumblingly telling him to pour him a glass of water, but Dae-jang acted as if he had not heard, turning to the camera and starting to fabricate things.
감사하다고. 예, 시민은행이 꼭 성공해야 된다고 그렇게 말씀하셨습니다.
Actually, this scene is particularly ironic. The old man's burned body had not recovered at all, so many people all crowded into the ward, not to mention the risk of fungal infection on the wounds. The camera flashes alone were enough to make the old man feel unwell. One can imagine just how worthless ordinary people's lives are in their eyes. Of course, this is not all. To maximize the publicity of the Citizens Bank, a whole group of them, dressed to the nines, began deliberately approaching ordinary people, even doing trivial things, and quickly taking photos of them, to prove that Dae-jang was genuinely working for the people. As their showmanship grew larger, soon the first investor found Dae-jang. He was willing to put up 30 billion won as loan funds for the Citizens Bank. Faced with this sudden huge sum of money, Dae-jang not only did not feel any suspicion, but instead believed that he deserved all of it. It seemed like a new beginning, but as Dae-jang's inner desires began to gradually warp, he looked at his secretary with a strange gaze, unable to resist saying something odd.
너 나 좋아하니?
That night, the secretary still could not escape Dae-jang's inner fervor. Like a little hamster, tightly clenched in his hand, Dae-jang felt the vanity wrapped in power, and in the end, crossed that line. At this moment at the airport, WIR, carrying that valuable painting, had already returned to South Korea. But just as she completed entry, she was directly stopped by two police officers.
외환관리법 위반 및 특정경제범죄 가중처벌 등에 관한 법률 위반으로 체포합니다.
In the interrogation room, WIR only then belatedly realized that she was actually the tycoon's tool for money laundering, but she did not regret it. As long as she could smoothly become the director, it was all worth it. She sat on the chair with an arrogant attitude, setting aside the tycoon for now. With Dae-jang's current influence, he could definitely get her out on bail. Sure enough, before long, the interrogation was interrupted.
제 아내가 뭘 잘못했습니까?
모르셨어요? 오수연 씨 전문이에요. 재벌들 비자금 만들어주는 거. 그것도 몇십억, 몇백억씩.
아니 미술관 큐레이터가 무슨 재주로 그런 돈을 만듭니까?
근데 교수님도 몇백억씩 만드시잖아요. 장 교수님이 준비하시는 시민은행 펀드 설립 자금이 어마어마하던데요.
After hearing this, Dae-jang was completely baffled, but what shocked him even more was yet to come. Because of his recent sudden rise, the entire police force was watching his movements. They suspected that there was a suspicious connection between the Future Group and the Minute-guk Party.
오수연 씨가 검은 돈 세탁해서 지금 때 싹 빼주면 장태준 씨가 받아다가 은행 설립 뭐 그런 거 아닌가요?
This confirms that saying, if you don't fit into a circle, don't force it. You think you have gotten help from the upper class, but in reality, you are just a scapegoat. Although the police only suspected it, and did not have solid evidence yet, these words were enough to make Dae-jang's heart churn with mixed feelings.
혹시 공천 받으신 게 혼자 힘으로 다 됐을 거라고 생각하세요?
In the end, through layers of connections, WIR was successfully released on bail. At this moment, the two sat in the car, each with their own secrets. No one knew what the other had done during the time they had been apart. Instead, they were both busy trying to squeeze into high society. That night, Dae-jang went to the old man's hospital bed in the middle of the night. He had wanted to see how the old man's recovery was going, but unexpectedly, the old man told him a shocking secret. It turned out that his self-immolation was not voluntary at all, but was orchestrated by the Minute-guk Party behind the scenes. Because at that time, Dae-jang had declared on TV that he would build a low-interest bank to serve the people, the so-called Citizens Bank. This was clearly going against the conglomerates, so the tycoon contacted the Minute-guk Party, using the excuse of exempting the old man from store rent, and arranged this whole scheme. At this moment, Dae-jang finally realized that he had fallen into a trap. Soon both sides faced their retribution. At the museum the next day, WIR's phone suddenly received a text message. When she opened it, the content instantly made her pupils dilate. She closed the privacy glass and began repeatedly watching the video inside. Only at this moment did she realize that her ex-boyfriend's appearance was actually a trap. The USB drive contained a large number of videos of her in Paris. Now it had fallen into the hands of her biggest rival, the director's personal secretary. In the dressing room of the luxury apartment, the secretary, wearing sexy lingerie, loftily toyed with that USB drive. She not only wanted to ruin WIRA's career, but also wanted to destroy her dignity. Facing the secretary's mockery, it pierced WIRA's heart like a knife. To protect the directorship that was almost within her grasp, to prevent the scandal from ruining her husband's election, the proud WIRA gave in. She knelt on the ground in humiliation, begging like a maid. The secretary looked down at her and spoke the cruelest unwritten rule of high society. Only the conglomerates have power, fearing nothing. Without that power, you should know how to be content. WIRA knelt in the shadows, speechless. She finally understood that the circle she had fought so hard to squeeze into was nothing but a slaughterhouse that would treat her like a dog at any moment. Compared to her ordeal, Dae Jang's fate was even worse. He found the Minute Guk Party member who had gotten him into politics a few days ago, and mentioned the self-immolating old man, wanting to know exactly what had happened. The boss who had invested 30 billion in the bank was also there. After hearing this, he immediately took off his expensive suit, and then revealed the intimidating tattoo on his arm. After cutting off a piece of bloody raw meat, he held the knife and stabbed it directly in front of Dae Jang. Dae Jang was so frightened that he did not dare to say a word.
우리 이제 친해졌으니까, 에? 제가 선배님 확실하게 밀어드려야죠. 한 식구처럼.
At this moment, the couple was completely stuck in a dilemma. They did not know what to do next. Even more despairing was that both had hidden shameful things from each other and could not comfort each other. Plus, both had strong personalities. So, driven to desperation, WIRA, wearing stockings that had been stored away for a long time, and after changing into a sexy outfit, wanted to seek the tycoon's help in a special way, trying to get close to the tycoon to destroy the director. But before the two could even get into deep conversation, unexpectedly, the director burst into the room with a camera, taking pictures of the two in that very situation. But the director was not targeting the tycoon. It was WIRA. After this, WIRA was completely finished. Now, only if the director died could she continue to move forward. But how could a little woman possibly have the courage to kill? As the couple sank deeper and deeper into the darkness, Dae Jang finally found a breakthrough. His secretary helped Dae Jang obtain the tycoon's secret ledger, which recorded a large amount of power sex deals, embezzlement, money laundering, and murder evidence. If all this information was released online, it would be enough to overturn the entire elite system. But at the same time, it would also cause harm to his wife and the secretary. So he thought of a method he thought was very clever: to meet the tycoon alone, and then use the ledger to threaten him, telling the tycoon and the Minute Guk Party not to trouble him anymore, and to give him enough money to last a lifetime.
있는 놈이 밥값 내는 거 봤어? 돈은 아쉬운 놈이 찾아와서 쓰고 가는 거야. 용돈은 좀 챙겨줄게. 그리고 이 장부 가지고 있어. 나하고 손 끊지 마.
The tycoon's reaction made Dae Jang feel uneasy, so he forced himself to stay calm and quickly left. But just as he left, the tycoon called WIRA. How could the tycoon not be afraid? It's just that in his hands, there was a pawn that Dae Jang could not refuse. That is, WIRA's video in Paris. Last time when the director suddenly barged into the tycoon's home, everything had been arranged by the two behind the scenes, because the tycoon no longer wanted to deal with this burden. So he created this illusion. But what made WIRA most devastated was that the director had handed the video to the tycoon to prevent WIRA from coming to them again. Now, after receiving the tycoon's orders, WIRA advised Dae Jang to stop, give up everything he had, and go back to being a professor peacefully.
그만해. 너 한마디만 더 하면 나 너한테 진짜 실망할 거야.
실망? 지금 그딴 말이 나와? 하늘에서 국회의원 자리가 뚝 떨어지니까 세상 사는 게 만만해 보이나 보지?
Hearing this, Dae Jang immediately lost his temper, because a while ago, the old man in the hospital bed had suddenly died. So without even thinking, it must have been them. Now WIRA was speaking for a group of murderers. Of course he could not accept it. Furious, Dae Jang turned and was about to leave the house. Seeing the situation was bad, WIRA directly snatched the ledger from Dae Jang's hands, planning to forcibly destroy the evidence. In the end, she failed, and was pushed hard to the ground by Dae Jang. WIRA, after some consideration, took out that Paris video from the room, and threw it harshly in front of Dae Jang. At first, Dae Jang did not know what was in it, until he saw the contents inside. He gritted his teeth in anger, and furiously wanted to confront WIRA. But when he rushed into the room, he saw WIRA lying in a pool of blood. But she had not committed suicide. It was the illness she had hidden for so many years. Uterine fibroids.
수연이는 특히 통증이 심한 편이었어요. 뭐 그 정도면 외과적 치료를 하는 게 맞는데 그냥 약만 먹으면서 버텼어요.
외과적 치료라는 게?
자궁절제요.
That night, Dae Jang sat by WIRA's side without sleeping at all. When WIRA woke up the next day, He placed the USB drive in front of WIR, choosing maximum tolerance and reconciliation. Of course, it was not because he was generous, but because Dae-jang had made the same mistake as WIR, and WIR had already known about it all along. But while pursuing high society, she had just never exposed it. Now that all their secrets were known to each other, and with a common enemy, the tycoon, they reached an agreement to take revenge on the tycoon. But their method of revenge was rather unique. Soon, the day of the museum exhibition arrived. The scene gathered various influential figures, along with the tycoon and the Minute Guk Party. At first, the exhibition was proceeding normally, but as the lights moved from the screen down to the floor, the video of WIR suddenly appeared on the screen. Those videos that were supposed to be leverage, shameful videos, were now made public. The executives who had been holding wine glasses just a second ago, all wore expressions of shock, and under the flickering neon lights, WIR stood on the stage, with a determined expression, staring directly at those hypocritical faces below, then calmly declared her ambition and ugliness.
저를 붙잡고 있는 것은 협박하는 그들이 아니라 바로 제 자신이었습니다. 놓지 못하고 털지 못하게 하는 바로 제 욕망이었습니다. 저는 제 자신을 찾고 싶습니다. 저에게 자유를 찾아주고 싶습니다. 저는 욕망의 주인이지 욕망의 노예는 되지 않겠습니다.
She did not cry or beg for mercy, but used a confession nearly suicidal, detonating that bomb used to blackmail her, with her own hands in front of everyone. In the audience, Dae-jang watched his wife, who was facing death for rebirth. His eyes slightly red. He did not feel humiliated, but instead clapped slowly and forcefully. In the silence of the entire venue, this applause was like a loud slap, landing on the face of every hypocrite. But when the tycoon and the Minute Guk Party realized the situation was bad, Dae-jang had already handed over the entire ledger to the police, the government, and the prosecution, giving the tycoon no chance to find a protective umbrella. The couple chose to sacrifice themselves, to expose these evildoers who commit all kinds of crimes. In the end, they all received their due punishment, and WIR also gave up the veil of desire, resigned from the museum job, and chose a secluded factory to open a museum of her own. No employees, no audience, no exhibitions, only herself. At this moment, she became the director she had always dreamed of. After opening the window, the moment sunlight fell on WIR's face, she finally revealed a long-lost smile. Many people, after watching High Society, feel that it is a film criticizing conglomerates and politicians. But in fact, it is more a film about human nature and desire. It does not portray the tycoons and politicians as born villains, nor does it portray the protagonists as innocent victims. Instead, it tells us that everyone has a seed of desire in their heart. With the right soil, it will take root and sprout, devouring your rationality and principles. They long for success, long to be recognized. This in itself is not wrong, but the mistake lies in that they made success their sole goal in life. For success, they do not hesitate to abandon their principles and ideals, sparing no cost in selling their souls and bodies. They think that squeezing into high society will bring them happiness and respect, but do not know that the door to high society has never been opened for ordinary people. Even if you manage to squeeze in, you will find that it is just a bigger cage. You will be swept up by desire and interests, and will never be able to be yourself again. We do not need to envy the glamour of high society, nor abandon our principles and ideals for their so-called success. An ordinary life, although it may not have so many flowers and applause, as long as we stay true to our hearts and cherish those around us, we can achieve true happiness. After all, the greatest success in life is not squeezing into high society, but living as the person you want to be.